How are you doing, guys? I hope you're doing good today. I'm doing all right under the circumstances. Stressors seem to be somewhat manageable. One thing that has been awesome is everyone's outpouring of support down in the comments, and it's been great. Thank you all so much. And, as usual, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. If you want to see more content like this, well, you're in luck because more's coming. We've got a 2-hour birthday nothing live stream tonight. We're just going to hang out and have a good time together. But I wanted to jump into something that I kind of asked about in the community discussions, and that's about Wizards of the Coast's morality clause that they've claimed will be in OGL 1.2, what it is and how it affects all of us going forward. Now, before we dive too deep into that, I want to remind you, all the way back in the 1990s, TSR issued marching order to all of its writers and all of its prospective writers with a pretty restrictive morality clause of their own. And it covered a lot of very broad subjects. Evil can never win. Alcohol consumption can never be depicted in a positive way. Of course, no more nudity in art. Kind of bundled in with that, with the roll-in of second edition, they got rid of assassins and half-orcs because assassins are evil and half-orcs might be the result of, So this is something that has been going on for a long time, and the blue-haired church ladies have been nattering at the edges of Dungeons & Dragons almost from its inception, all the way back to the tragic loss of James Dallas Egbert, and then Pat Pulling's son. And you start to see a pattern that has been going on for one cycle after the other. And the case that I want to make about why a morality clause is a bad idea has nothing to do with my desire to put anything that might be deemed objectionable or exclusionary or hurtful in anything that I've created. And I want to come back to those terms in just a minute. No, the thing I want to address is this. Those terms are forever a moving goalpost. My issue right now is what's defined as those things today could change tomorrow. Hasbro could be purchased by a completely different organization, or a different board of directors come in with a completely different point of view about what constitutes harmful or objectionable language or portrayals in the game. It's all well and good to legislate, and I use that with a lowercase l. Obviously, I'm not referring to actual government legislation, but it's all well and good to legislate morality and insist on certain moral standards in whatever you've created. But the thing about it is those legislations can flex from group to group. And what you're cheering on today may be thrown out in favor of the thing that you don't like in the next cycle. And where will your protests be then if you're cheering this kind of, well, frankly, censorship on? That's why I think all of us need to be concerned about OGL 1.2 and its so-called objectionable content warnings. And that leads into something else. What is objectionable? Again, I warn you, what is objectionable today could change tomorrow. It could change in 6 months. Do any of you out there, regardless of what side of this conversation you sit on, do any of you want a PMRC-like body with a laser focus on Dungeons and Dragons? Jumping in and saying, you know, you can't have a drawing of a sword stabbing into a bad guy. That's violence. You can't show a spell burning somebody up. That's witchcraft and Satanism. Or the things that are acceptable today about interpersonal relationships being morally legislated out by people who don't agree with that at some point down the road. Unfortunately, folks, this is literally an all or none consideration. And now is where I'm going to get my tinfoil hat on. Because I want to look at something real quick here. If you go to DriveThruRPG and you look at an old school D&D product, and old school, folks, old school can include up to and including even 5th edition at this point. Remember that. Just pulling up the Dungeon Master's Guide, we have this text. And it says, "We, wizards, recognize that some of the legacy content available on this website does not reflect the values of the Dungeons & Dragons franchise today. Some older content may reflect ethnic, racial, and gender prejudice that were commonplace in American society at that time." Note, it doesn't. None of it does. I'm just pointing that out to you. These depictions were wrong then, and they're wrong today. This content is presented as it was originally created, because to do so otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. Dungeons & Dragons teaches that diversity is strength, and we will strive to make our D&D products as welcoming and inclusive as possible. This part of our work will never end. They're admitting here that older products may not fit their own morality clause. Does this mean that they'll bring the axe down on all of the classic products? They've already said, we're looking at folding older products into the OGL 1.2, which I don't think is to make them available. I think it's to shut them off from further development. And if you couple their morality clause with this part of our work will never end, then you've got a recipe for the deletion of gaming history. Now, I know some of you might be okay with that. There might be some of you out there who say, well, no, you old neckbeard, the old past stuff was terrible and it should be gotten rid of. And that's certainly your opinion, and you're welcome to it. I don't agree with you, suffice to say, if that's your opinion. But it's not that the clause exists. It's that the contents of the clause are chimeric. They can change. And again, let me reiterate, what you might cheer on today could be turned against you tomorrow by a different set of managers. And that's just something I wanted you guys to consider. Until or unless Wizards of the Coast is willing to sit down and very clearly define what their lines are and not just hand wave it and say, oh, it's anything we deem offensive. But you're not going to create content like that, are you? You're not going to create something that could offend someone. What have you got to worry about with the vagueness of our statement? Until or unless they're willing to draw a very clearly delineated line, then creativity is under threat in this hobby. And let me reiterate, in this hobby, Wizards of the Coast is a publicly traded company that can do what they like. Anyone crying censorship and asking for First Amendment protections, at least here in the United States, well, you're going to have to clean out your headgear, because this is not a First Amendment rights issue. But just from a hobbyist perspective, it is kind of a big deal. And we just wrap up by saying that if you think there's things that'll slip under the radar, there aren't. I know a lot of you guys are fans of Dragonlance. The conclusion of the Dragonlance cycle almost got completely capsized by one so-called sensitivity reader that neither Margaret Weiss nor Tracy Hickman had any previous interactions with. And they had to go to court against Wizards of the Coast, nay, Hasbro, a couple of years ago. We've talked about it on this show. We've had an attorney on this show talking about it. If they'll go after Weiss and Hickman, they'll go after you. And I've heard rumblings, there are morality clauses lurking in not just Wizards of the Coast Open's license. So I'm going to keep reporting on this as I can kind of lay my hands on the facts. I just want you guys to think about this. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this, and keep your eyes open, guys. Stay positive. I'll be back tonight. We're going to have Tales of Tabletop Triumph video posting up tomorrow. Probably a how-to AD&D video posting up tomorrow. And of course, tomorrow night is our live stream on the front half, and then our live streamed first edition AD&D game with our Tuesday night gaming group on the back half of that live stream. But until then, peace, stay positive, and I'll see you guys later.